So you just watched a nice little video, and of course the main message was you can learn anything, and that was followed by some key ideas relevant to that core idea, which was, hey, we're not born already smart, and we're not born already knowing things. So they give you the example of, Einstein, he didn't know everything that he came to know or construct his knowledge. Same thing with Shakespeare, before he could write plays, he had to learn the ABCs like the rest of us, right? It's that kind of that theory that, you have to learn to crawl before you can walk. And of course, you have to learn to walk before you can run. And so one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that if it is true that you can learn anything, then it is true that you can learn how to think like a philosopher. It is true that you can learn to analyze and clarify arguments. It is going to be true that you'll be able to apply some standards and some criterion that you're going to read about, criteria that you'll read about in later units and bundles on how to evaluate a philosophical theory. It is true that you can learn to discuss philosophical ideas in a way that meets the standards of philosophical thinking, which you will do primarily in dialectic boards and discussion or essay items in the tests. So you can learn to think about things, explore things, question things, and analyze things like a philosopher. Now, because this is an introduction to philosophy, of course, I assume that you have some basics such that you're ready to learn more precisely what it means to think like a philosopher and what it is that philosophers are interested in. So, of course, we have to begin from somewhere. Now, obviously, you've learned to read. You know how to listen to a lecture, a video lecture. You know how to try to comprehend what's written. You know how to follow instructions. See, these are all the baby steps along the way, or all the prerequisites that your mind and brain has experienced in order to get to this point. So if you've been able to learn enough to get into college, then you've certainly learned enough to try to understand and develop skills relevant to doing philosophy. So I know for some of you, as you're going through some of the new material, like how to analyze and clarify arguments, trying to comprehend the philosophical theories, when you learn to evaluate theories, learning to analyze and make sense of concepts, I do realize that sometimes it's going to feel like you can't learn the stuff. But one of the things that I'm going to want you to keep in mind is something that was briefly mentioned in the video. And let me see, I have my note here. Where is it? They said in the video, or someone said, there's this idea that you have to believe that you can learn the stuff. Okay, and if you're in this class, you do have the potential to learn the stuff, or you wouldn't be allowed to be in this class or in this college. But he said, even you have to know that you will eventually get it. You will eventually get the stuff that I'm presenting to you and encouraging you to learn. But of course, you have to be willing to practice. And you're going to be learning more about about practicing and intelligence and development of the brain in an article you're going to read. But yes, you need to know that you will get it, even if you haven't gotten it yet. So YET, very, very important term there. And in the next video, this notion of I don't know it yet, I don't know how to yet, will be emphasized. And I want you to be thinking about this idea that you can, instead of saying, I don't know how to do that, or I'll never learn how to do that, I want you to start thinking, I don't know how to do this yet. I haven't learned how to do it yet. I haven't gotten perfect at it yet. Yet is a very powerful and uplifting term, and it's meaningful so long as you're actually putting in the work to try to understand and comprehend things. And in fact, you might find you say something about the way that I offer instruction. I couldn't learn at first in her class, in that first unit. It was so hard. Or I'm not going to be able to learn from her. What I'd rather you have said is, if that was you, I can't learn from her yet. I can't make sense of her yet. But if I can learn anything, I can learn how to learn in Dr. F's course. So that's another way of thinking about it. And one other thing I want to stress with respect to the last video is that just as Shakespeare had to first learn his ABCs to be able to write plays, and Einstein had to learn certain fundamentals in order to, develop scientific theories, the philosophers themselves had to start with very basics, right? They had to learn how to talk. They had to learn their ABCs, their 1, 2, 3s. They weren't born already philosophizing. And the philosophers that we read, they were creating brand new knowledge. But they got to that point only after decades. And the current philosopher, it takes you decades from the day you were born to the time that you get to become a professional philosopher to develop and present those kinds of theories. So don't beat yourself up if you don't automatically understand a theory. Don't beat yourself up, and don't even try to understand as scholarly as a philosopher, okay? What I'm going to be looking for is basic competence and understanding of how to think like a philosopher and how to talk like a philosopher, but at a very basic level. All right, so keep thinking about that, okay? I want you to keep thinking about how we're not born smart, how we can learn anything as long as we know that we have to sometimes start at a beginning or fundamental level, and that just because you haven't learned how to do something already, or because you don't already know something, doesn't mean you're not smart. It means you just haven't learned it yet, so you don't know it yet. It's very powerful.